Hey everyone, welcome back to another video with a music-related discussion. Okay, so I'm glad to be back. Was a little under the weather, as they say, last week. But almost fully recovered, and here we are. So let's get right to it. So the topic that I've chosen today is to talk about books. Books related to music. You know, they take all forms, shapes and sizes and such. And I'll probably repeat this as I tend to do. But lately it seems to be that a lot of books will come out in a couple of different editions. You know, in the past it's always just been pretty much hardcover, and then a while after that, or same time, paperback comes out. But in recent times, I guess, to attract more of a collector type of audience or something, make them feel like they have something unique, you'll have a book that'll come out and it'll be some sort of deluxe attributes to it. It might be signed by the band, the musician or band, as well as the author, and it might have like a limited edition art print or some special thing about it. And then thankfully, you know, for those that don't have the big bucks for, you know, the super deluxe edition, as they call these things sometimes, there's a, not, you know, you wouldn't call it a budget, it'd be like the regular version. Let's say that. So I just took out a few, and let's get going with it. All right, so first up, you know, let me just say as a side comment that also that the books on musicians and bands can take a wide range of creative directions. There'll be some that are really text heavy, very little illustration or, you know, photographs of the band or stuff related to them. There's other ones that are basically like a scrapbook that'll have ticket stubs and publicity photos and excerpts of tour booklets and all that related ephemera that goes with a band. And then there'll be some that kind of strike a happy balance between the two. But this one, this is, as far as I know, this is the second book. And I have the other one. And this is called Book of Changes by Christine McKenna. Excellent. All right, it's got some non-musician figures in here. She's a great interviewer. Very super intelligent stuff. Great questions. And just a few of her interviewees are Brian Eno, James Brown, Don Van Vliet, a.k.a. Captain Beefheart, Pete Townsend, Ray Charles, Leonard Cohen, David Lynch, Iggy Pop. Well worth seeking out. Book of Changes. Christine McKenna. This is a Fantagraphics book. All right, next up, we have The Beatles Magical Mystery Tour and Yellow Submarine. Somebody else had done a review where they pointed this out. I believe it may have been on the Parlogram series, which is excellent, on YouTube. And this is by Bruce Spicer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's not just about the album, but it's about their, you know, the culture surrounding the Beatles at the time of Magical Mystery Tour, and you know, photos of the scene and things like that. It's a great book. It's got a very small press indie vibe to it. It doesn't have that feel of like coming out from a big publisher. Moving right along. This is from an like a line from Abrams Publishing called Abrams Image. I don't know how many books they've done under that imprint, but this is called No Wave Post-Punk Underground, New York, 1976 to 80, and it's by Thurston Moore and Byron Coley, both really nice guys. My copy I happened to get signed. They did an event when it came out, and it covers the New York City scene of 76 to 80 when there were bands emerging that really, they were not trying to make it big, just trying to make an artistic statement. It was that intersection of, you know, avant-garde art, free jazz, poetry, and, you know, whatever else struck their fancy. I think just kind of rebellious dissonance and such. Even though there are people in the bands that can play and all that. All right, so it's basically, you know, it's about like Teenage Jesus and the Jerks and Contortions and DNA and, you know, all the other like-minded bands of the scene. Filled with great photos, anecdotes, and all that. I was not totally immersed in that scene at the time. I was aware of it. It was just, you know, a part of that cultural avalanche or swarm or whatever, you know, euphemism you want to use, that encompassed all the creative forces of art, music, fashion, design, poetry, etc. coming at us all at once in that era. Well worth seeking out. It's got a really cool kind of binding, and it's got that kind of black, it's a black and white photos. I don't see any color photos on a quick flip through. Maybe a color photo of a flyer or two. But it's got that, even the cover art kind of has that run off on a Xerox machine kind of vibe to it. All right, next up. This is a collaborative book between Brian Eno and Russell Mills, the artist, who's done many an album cover, and also has his 2 CDs out, his Undark CDs with an all-star cast. You know, he took a lot of flack for that, but I like it. Anyway, you know, the thing was with the flack that he took for it, it's that the musicians he collaborated with it gave him tracks that were unused, and everybody thought that, you know, the general populace that does little critiques and such seemed to weigh in on it like these were undesirable tracks by the artist, that they were just doing this as a favor to him, giving him basically stuff they would never use for songs. I disagree with that, and he had a great exhibition at School of Visual Arts about, I think it was about 15 years ago. So anyway, this is a book of Brian Eno's song lyrics for his vocal albums. And it also has a lot of little photos of Brian Eno's sketchbooks. He's one of these people that has sketchbooks that are kind of like a look into his brain. A lot of diagrams for like everything. Very, very wordy. And, you know, I'm glad that they shared this with us. So at the time, there were so many of these around that I kind of passed it up. But in recent years, I picked up a copy. Didn't have to pay too much, but, you know, snap them up if you can find them. It's great. And it also accompanies, that's More Dark Than Shark. There was a tie-in album and CD, and they might have different track listings. I'm not sure because I only have the CD, but it's called More Blank Than Frank. Very similar cover art to that book. Moving right along, we have the Devo book, Devo Unmasked. It's got like 2 titles. It's Devo Unmasked and Devo the Brand. Now, when this came out a couple years ago, you know, this was one of these things where, you know, you pay the extra bucks and you get the deluxe edition. It's like hardcover, and it's in a beautiful slipcase, and it's signed by the guys in the band, and you know, it's like in like rubber from Akron or something. you know, like a rubber cover. But for those of us that just wanted the regular edition and didn't have the big bucks at the time to splurge, this is just fine. So the fact that it has two books, two titles, I should say, Devo Unmasked and Devo the Brand, it's almost, I think it's at the halfway point where the text flips, you turn the book around and start from the other side. It's basically two books in one. I think the regular edition was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was separated into two separate books. Something like that. Then we have Perubu the Scrapbook, 1975 to 82, by Communex. You know, coming from directly from Perubu. It's a self-published thing, talking about press releases, bootlegs, song lyrics are in here. Softbound. I don't know if it's sold out on the Uboutique website. Worth seeking out if you're an Ubu fan. Absolutely. I know they deeply discounted it at one point over the past year, and that might have been the impetus for it to fly out the door. It might be a sold out thing now, but you could probably track one down. Then we have this book. This is called A Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 1. And it's The Residents. Very nicely put together book by I believe it's Rocket 88 Publishers. Maybe the same as Devo. And this covers the early part of The Residents. Looking for a range of years here. But, you know, the earliest phase. That's the spine. That's the cover. If you're a Residents fan, seek it out. Okay, this is another Abrams book, and I don't think it's part of the Abrams Image imprint. At least if it is, they're not indicating it on the cover. This is called Punk 365. By Holly George Warren, with a foreword by Richard Hell. And it's not overly filled with text. It's one of those books, if you've ever seen any of these in the 365 series, it's kind of the format of it, where they'll have like a really nice photo on one page. And on the facing page, they'll have just a related blurb. You know, a recollection or a quote from somebody pertinent to the photo you're seeing. So this is filled with photos of many, many bands. It's got Lou Reed, it's got Talking Heads, Television, David Johansen, Alex Chilton, Joey Ramone, quick flip through here, Malcolm McLaren, Elvis Costello, Ian Dury. Look for somebody a little more obscure here. Usual suspects. Cabaret Voltaire's in here. All right. Patti Smith Group, Lance Loud, and on and on and on. Then, okay, this is the David Bowie Is Inside book. And this is from the glorious exhibit that was at the Brooklyn Museum a few years ago. And it pretty much mirrors that. Really nicely done. And it's a little side comment with books. I know there's been trends over the years where a page layout will have a lot of white space. I'm not a great fan of that. You know, if you have a photo and it's got really nice resolution, I'm one of those, go right up to the edges of the page, actually bleed off the edge of the page, put the caption on the facing page, that kind of thing. I don't want to see a book that's, I realize, you know, there's a certain elegance to that, but don't spread it over a whole book. You know, that thing where you get a book and let's say the dimensions are, okay, let's use album covers because that'll be relevant, 12 by 12, right? And then you open it up and you're like, oh, I have this glorious, like, artsy kind of book about this band. You open it up, and it's got a little, like, 5 by 5 photo with all white space around it. Oh, how wonderful. I say, make the photo bigger. Forget the white space. Some books seem to have embraced that, and those are ones that I really kind of like. And last but not least for this one, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a two-parter. But, all seriousness aside sometimes, because let's face it, there's a range of books that can get very scholarly and a little dry and long-winded and such. Much like I'm not trying to have this segment be. And, they can just get a little too... I realize, there's a certain level of respect that can be commanded by that, like a really scholarly overview of a musician or band with proper dissection and all that. But every now and then, it's good to just have a laugh and be a little bit lighthearted. And on that note, I have these two books, and they are the misheard song lyrics, which was brilliant that somebody actually had that little light bulb go off and, made it happen. And this was a short-lived MTV series. I don't think it ran more than 4 episodes or something. But, every now and then they would test the waters with something and it was kind of, slip through past all the really bad programs they've had. So we have the first one here of Misheard Lyrics. I believe this was the first edition. It was called When a Man Loves a Walnut by Gavin Edwards. Ah, okay. I'm correcting myself here. I see blurbs on the cover and I'm going to correct myself. They're both by Gavin Edwards, illustrated by Chris Kalb, I believe, for both. And, yeah, okay. So here's the one, the cartoon Jimi Hendrix on the cover. And it says, "Excuse me while I kiss this guy," and other misheard lyrics. And then we have When a Man Loves a Walnut. And even more misheard lyrics. Everybody has misheard lyrics at some point. I read from the book of the misheard lyrics. Let me see. What would I read from here? Some are better than others, for sure. What do we got here? Okay, Led Zeppelin. There's a feeling I get when I look at my waist. And that's a misquote of the Stairway to Heaven lyric. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west. Haha. Very enjoyable. Everybody has misheard lyrics. And with that, I wish you happy holidays. Over and out.